Slammed onto the bonnet of the car and saying no retreat, no surrender.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had to have minders, which was quite it was quite intimidating. Like maybe
The cry was no surrender, according to Ian Wright back in the year 2000. Tonight, in 2025, it's the exact same thing. Welcome back to Fog Football. Rangers Bilbao later on the day. Big night. But the overlap was on with Duncan Ferguson, Ian Wright, Roy Keane, and two other people whose names are just absolutely eluding me. But to me, the only people that are relevant here is Ian Wright and Duncan Ferguson and Roy Keane to a degree, because Ian Wright was talking about the Old Firm games, and he talked about the fact, despite having security who looked after him, minders, during his short stay in Glasgow, the former goal machine says he decided to remain indoors on Derby week to avoid intimidating atmosphere on the streets. And that was on the Stick to the Football podcast. So we'll actually get into the quotes in a wee minute, but does I not just tell you that the Old Firm is a more fierce and better rivalry than anything down south? You know what I mean? Minders, weeks ahead of an Old Firm. Different gravy, my friends. But this is what Ian Wright had to say. And I quote, "When I was at Celtic, I had to have minders for the Rangers games. It was quite intimidating. It made me think, really, what do I need minders for? I remember one time I was coming out of a hotel and someone slammed onto the bonnet of my car shouting, 'No retreat, no surrender.' So I didn't come out of my hotel after that. I just thought, what's the point? As you don't know who you're going to bump into." End of quote. There is something pretty comedic about that. There's something pretty great about that. Ian Wright sitting in a car and some guy slams down and screams, "No surrender." I mean, some people probably greet about that. "Oh, that was too far. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that." It's just the rivalry, isn't it? And you can just imagine Ian Wright for what? How many games did he play for Celtic? Like, it's like 7 or 8 or something. You know what I mean? Imagine that, from the tameness down south in England to leaving his hotel room, jumping into the back of the motor, and some guys banging on the car screaming, "No surrender." I think that's quite funny. Duncan Ferguson looked at him and kind of went, "Yeah." Duncan Ferguson then jumped in and talked about, "Minders needed to always be with me whilst I was at Rangers. It was tough. If you had to go to the supermarket to buy some aftershave or a Valentine's card, I had to take a couple of minders with me. It's because I had a few assaults against me, and they knew that if I got another, I was going to go to prison, as I was on probation for the assaults I had accumulated. As it happens, I broke my probation on the football pitch. It never happened before, and it's never happened again, but I got put in prison for that incident on the football pitch, and then they changed the rules as it was wrong, what they did to me." End of quote. See, big Duncan Ferguson, man. What a tough bastard he is. I don't think there'd be many people in a supermarket trying to interrupt Duncan Ferguson trying to buy a Valentine's card or aftershave. But I tell you what, I'm hearing good things about this episode of The Overlap, or whatever you call it. What's it called? Stick to Football podcast. Might actually go listen to it, because hearing Duncan Ferguson talk about that is pretty great, to be honest. But like I say, who the hell's going to interrupt Duncan Ferguson in Asda? You know what I mean? In Tesco, Morrison's, you name it. No one's going to interrupt him. That's the simple matter of it, man. No one's going to do it, but I think that's a must listen to podcast. So I would probably advise people listen to that, even though I've not listened to it. I've just seen the clips for Ian Wright, but it's funny. Like, he's talking about the no surrender thing, and you've got Duncan Ferguson and like Roy Keane looking on, who are obviously aware of we're aware of Scottish football, and Ian Wright sitting there, Jill Scott's just sitting there with Gary Neville, that's the other two names, looking completely and utter dumbfounded, as they just don't understand it. They don't get it. They never will get it. They're just used to the wee shitey Manchester derbies and the shitey tourist derby of Liverpool and Manchester United. That's what they're used to. Like, see if you actually think of it. They'll talk about those two, but for me in England, the game that always stood out as like ferocious it's always Arsenal and United. You know, the Fergie versus Arsene Wenger. I've never watched here. Maybe it was better, right, back in the day, like Manchester derbies, but See over like the last 20 years when you watch a Manchester derby, you honestly never get the feeling that it's a derby. I don't, and I've watched quite a lot of them. And it's the same goes for a United Liverpool game. It never feels like there's that much. It doesn't. It really doesn't feel like there's that much rivalry there. But yeah, no surrender, as Ian Wright would say. But later on the night, Rangers Bilbao. It's a slow news day, but I thought this was a pretty good story. So anyway, leave your thoughts down below. Till next time, peace.